Though a bit of a brighter start, plenty of sunny spells to start the day. Any mist and fog that we might see will clear relatively quickly through the morning, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England too. We could see the odd patch of mist and fog in places. For parts of Wales, Northern England, generally a dry, bright start to the morning. Plenty of sunny spells on offer to start the day. As we then head through Tuesday morning and in towards the afternoon, we will start to see some showers bubbling up, particularly across parts of England, Wales, maybe one or two across Northern Ireland too, though these generally not quite as heavy as we saw on Monday. Then all eyes out towards the west, we start to see this weather front arriving across Northern Ireland, pushing its way eastwards as we head through the afternoon. Perhaps some quite heavy rainfall in places, but where we do see the sunshine, it will be feeling really pleasant. Temperatures 17 or 18 degrees, so a little above average for the time of year. That weather front then continues to spread its way eastwards as we head through Tuesday evening and into the start of Wednesday. Any showers across eastern areas gradually easing through the night, and that sets us up through much of next week. Some sunny spells, some showers, some longer spells of rain, but temperatures generally around about average, perhaps a little above in places.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Drivers on the M3 eastbound in Surrey are facing disruptions due to a broken down vehicle between Junction 4 and Junction 3, with one lane currently closed. Meanwhile, a road traffic incident on the M25 clockwise between Junction 16 and Junction 17 in Buckinghamshire is causing delays with one lane of 4 closed. In South Gloucestershire, the M4 eastbound between Junction 22 and Junction 21 has congestion leading to extended travel times. Lastly, conditions are challenging for travellers on the A4232 northbound from the A48 interchange to M4 Junction 33 due to congestion. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hello, good evening. It's 6 o'clock and you are watching Dewbs & Co. with me, as you might have spotted, not Michelle. I'm Dawn Neeson, standing in for the lovely Michelle for Easter Monday. I hope you're having a wonderful day out there. Now, obviously, the sad news of the day, Pope Francis has died, aged 88. We will be bringing you live rosary prayers in honour of the late Pope, who passed away this morning after bouts of illness and a very long hospital stay earlier this year, wasn't there? Plus, we've had a landmark ruling from the Supreme Court, really what a woman is But where is the Prime Minister on this? Does he still think that we've all got, you know, appendages? Rumour has it he's plotting to defy that judgment. What do you think of that, should he? And MPs are calling for Trump to be blocked from addressing Parliament during his UK visit on the grounds that he's a bit of a liar. Well, it's going to be a quiet Parliament if we ban all liars, isn't it? What do you make to that one? And we've got a cracking panel for you tonight as well. Joining me until 7 is Ben Habib, chairman of the Great British PAC, Andy Preston, political commentator, and the wonderful GB News contributor, Emma Trimble. But first, let's get those news headlines for you.
Your headlines. Now, as you've been hearing, the King has sent heartfelt condolences and profound sympathy following the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. The pontiff, who was Bishop of Rome and head of the Catholic Church, spent 12 years in the Vatican after becoming Pope in 2013. His death was announced by Cardinal Farrell in a statement released by the Vatican this morning, who said his entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his Church. It comes just one day after he made a surprise appearance at the Vatican's Easter Sunday service, blessing crowds in St. Peter's Square. In recent years, his papacy has been marked by concerns about his health, with a 5-week hospital stay for an infection that developed into double pneumonia. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has posted on X saying he is deeply saddened to hear of the death of His Holiness, describing the late pontiff as a pope for the poor, the downtrodden and the forgotten. Meanwhile, the associate editor of the Catholic Herald, Simon Caldwell, told GB News the Catholic Church is likely to move away from Pope Francis's progressive leadership.
It hasn't left a very united church. Not everybody has identified with the agenda of Francis. So I think that will be reflected in the conclave. I mean, Francis has chosen many cardinals who he thinks will uphold his legacy, but they will, in the end, they're going to do what they think is right. And I would be surprised if we have a Francis too. I really would.
In other news, Russian drone attacks have been reported across Ukraine just hours after the end of a 30-hour Easter truce was declared by Moscow. Ukraine's Air Force issued air raid alerts for the eastern half of the country, while in the southern city of Mykolaiv, explosions were heard. It was not immediately clear whether there were any casualties. It follows a brief Easter truce declared by Vladimir Putin, which both Ukraine and Russia accused each other of breaching. The UK government has dismissed the ceasefire as a one-day stunt, backing Ukraine's call for a longer pause. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has said he hopes Russia and Ukraine will make a deal this week. And pressure is growing for the Prime Minister to break his silence on the Supreme Court's ruling that biological sex defines a woman. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of refusing to stop a plot by ministers to thwart the landmark gender judgment. Labour MPs are reportedly plotting to circumvent the judgment in leaked WhatsApp messages. It's understood Number 10 has not taken action against those involved, insisting the messages aren't an attempt to undermine the court's decision. It comes after trans rights activists gathered for an emergency demonstration over the weekend, where multiple statues were defaced, including that of feminist hero Millicent Fawcett. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has slammed the vandalism as disgraceful, but Sir Keir Starmer is yet to comment.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Needham, in for the lovely Michelle, who's having her bank holiday off. Well deserved. Joining me until 7 is my panel, Ben Habib, chairman of the Great British PAC, Andy Preston, political commentator, and GB News contributor Emma Trimble has joined us in the studio following the sad news, obviously, of the Pope's death, which we lost him this morning. So, yeah, it's a sad day. We have got lots of other things coming up. I do appreciate that, you know, many of you have been across this story all day, so we do have lots of other things coming up for you, including why Donald Trump is in trouble with Labour. Who'd have thought it, eh? But this show is all about you and your views. You are the most important people here, so remember to get your views in on all the stories we're talking about or anything you want to talk about. And it is a bank holiday Monday. What you've been up to today, that's always good fun, isn't it? So gbnews.com/your say and let us know anything you want to talk about, to be honest with you. But we do start with the breaking news today. Obviously, Pope Francis died today on Easter Monday after leading the Catholic Church for an incredible 12 years. Joining me now to bring us up to date on that story is GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker, live from Westminster Cathedral. Cameron, good to see you. Can you, obviously, GB News has been across this story all day. Can you bring us up to date with the latest developments?
Yeah, absolutely, Dawn. Well, Westminster Cathedral is the focal point, really, for Catholics in England and Wales. And right now, the Archbishop of Westminster is conducting a Requiem Mass. And I went inside to listen to the first part of that Mass, and the mood inside is incredibly sombre. It's an incredibly moving service, and it's actually packed, Dawn. It's standing room only. A lot of people have come out. There must be at least 1,000 people inside that building paying their respects to Pope Francis. And in the press conference earlier on today, the Archbishop of Westminster, Cardinal Vincent Nichols, actually said to us, look, I had no idea, I did not expect the Pope to die today. The reason being, of course, we saw him yesterday on Easter Sunday on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, waving to the crowds, wishing them happy Easter. There was a hint that all was not well because he was in a wheelchair, and also an aide read out his Easter blessing on his behalf. But he got in his Pope-mobile, greeting members of the public in St. Peter's Square. Babies were being handed up to him to receive a blessing from him. But then, of course, as you said, Dawn, very sadly, we got the news this morning that at 7:35 local time, the Pope passed away. He'd had pretty difficult bouts of ill health over the last few months. He was in hospital for more than a month for double pneumonia. And then, of course, when he was 21, he had part of his lung removed because of pneumonia as well. But, of course, the press conference that took place this afternoon with the cardinals here in the United Kingdom, they said the next pope must be someone with great inner strength and inner peace. But they stressed, the Archbishop of Westminster really stressed, that the next 9 days at least should be focused on Pope Francis and mourning his loss. As I said, the Requiem Mass taking place right now at 6:30 London time to 7:30 in the Vatican. There is something called the Rosary prayer service taking place. Now, there's a Catholic tradition particularly associated with funeral rites. And talking of funeral rites, Pope Francis had already made what he wanted, really, for his funeral public. He wanted a simple wooden casket, something he will be placed in relatively shortly today. The Vatican announced earlier on, instead of the traditional lead and oak. And he also wants to be buried in St. Mary Major Basilica rather than the traditional vault, which popes of the past have been buried in. So it appears, Dawn, that Pope Francis is being pretty humble in death as well as he was in life.
Thank you very much indeed. That's our GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker, live from Westminster Cathedral there for us. Thank you very much. Now, we will be going live to Rome as well to bring you coverage of the prayers that are happening in, I think, about 20 minutes' time. But I know, as I said, a lot of you have been across this news all day and you do want to talk about other things as well. So please do get in touch, gbnews.com/your say, and we will discuss other things. We've got some cracking stories coming up for you as well. But I just want to talk to my panel about, obviously, the events of today. I still have Ben Habib, Andy Preston and Emma Trimble. Emma, I'm going to come to you first because you actually have faith. You are very proud of your faith. What has today meant to you? How do you feel about what happened today?
So I'm not a Catholic, but a Roman Catholic, but I am an Anglo-Catholic. So I'm part of the Anglo-Catholic movement within the Church of England. So I lean Catholic. We pray for the Pope. Obviously, the Pope is somebody who politically, theologically, I'm not aligned with. I'm much more conservative. His politics were left-wing. His theology was liberal. But he is the heir of St. Peter. And St. Peter was appointed by Christ. And through the apostolic succession, the Pope who has obviously Pope Francis, who's just died, and also whoever becomes the next Pope will be within that apostolic succession. So the papacy, I think, is of importance to Christians around the world, whether they're Roman Catholic or not.
Do you think this Pope, I mean, I hate to use modern terminology to describe this, but was a little bit too woke to be the Pope?
I think, I mean, he's a mixed character. So Tim Stanley wrote a brilliant article about him in today's Telegraph explaining those nuances, because in some ways he leaned towards the left on matters of social justice, the climate and so on, and in other ways he was perhaps more traditional.
Quite strong migration, wasn't he?
Talking about welcoming refugees and so on, exactly. And so, I mean, he chose to be named after St Francis of Assisi. He focused his mission, in a sense, on humility. Some people might have thought that his humility was maybe a little extravagant. He chose to move out of the papal apartments, not to wear the traditional red shoes, the traditional garb of the Pope. I mean, even only in the last couple of days, obviously on Maundy Tuesday, went into a prison, despite his sickness, to wash the feet of prisoners. And in that sense, you know, it transcends the left-right divide, I think. But in other ways, I mean, he banned the traditional Latin Mass, which is something that's incredibly popular, particularly amongst young people who are turning towards the Catholic Church. So we're looking forward to, you know, who might be appointed Pope next. And of course, I would say this, I think from a sort of evangelical perspective, somebody who is more traditional, maybe not quite like Pope Benedict, who was obviously the predecessor to Pope Francis. He was a theologian, he was an academic, and he was known maybe as not having as gentle a bedside manner as Pope Francis did. Pope Francis was very casual, very loving, very open. So somebody who combines those characteristics, I think, would be an ideal successor.
OK, let's come to, thank you, let's come to you, Ben, on this one. I mean, you know, this Pope was very, very hands-on, very ordinary. He refused to live in the papal apartments. He didn't want to use the Pope-mobile until he absolutely had to. When he did the Maundy Thursday washing of the feet of inmates of a young offenders institution, 2 were women and 1 was a Muslim. So he was very, very liberal, I think, is the polite way of putting it. Do you think the next Pope should be going back more to traditional values?
Well, you know, I'm reluctant to open with a critical assessment of Pope Francis, but I think one of the problems that Western civilization has been grappling with is the setting aside of our traditions, our traditional beliefs, our culture, and so on, as embodied in ceremonies and in the way that we conduct ourselves and in formalities and protocol. And when we set those things aside in the pursuit of, and I think you're quite right to say liberalism, because that's what it is. It's a form of liberalism. I think we damage ourselves. We damage Western civilization, and there's been far too much of that. And of course, the Church of England, under Welby and others, has completely almost forgotten what it means to be Christian. Emma might have a view on that, and they've done great damage to the cultural fabric of Western civilization and of this country. So I'm a great believer in modernity, evolving as societies evolve, but change, I think, needs to come at a very small incremental pace so that culturally we can keep up with it. And there's been far too much dramatic change over the last 25, 30 years, and I would like to see all of Western civilization stabilised back to the kind of environment that I experienced when I was growing up.
OK, Andy, we will come to you. I'm not ignoring you, because I know you've never done Michelle's show before, have you? So we'll come back to you, because I don't want to try and
that would contradict a little bit of what they said.
Yeah, yes. I don't want to squish you in 30 seconds, because that's not polite, is it, on your first time? In any case, we will be moving on, people, I promise you that. Coming up, Sir Keir's silence over the Supreme Court ruling is sparking fresh fears that the government may oppose the decision.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
You may not have heard of Betty Joel, but you'll certainly have heard of her long list of high society clients and her extraordinary designs. Born in Hong Kong in 1894, Betty Joel built a business empire through her knack for interior design, working for Lord Louis Mountbatten, Winston Churchill and royalty. Her fingerprints are visible on some of the most iconic buildings in 1930s London, including Fortnum and Mason, the Savoy and the Daily Express office building on Fleet Street. While Betty Joel's legacy as a trailblazing female entrepreneur and interior designer may have fallen out of public view, a new archive collection compiled by her great-nephew aims to correct the record and is available to view at Olympia Auctions. Joining me now is the designer's great-nephew, who helped collate her archives and whose new book bears her name, Betty Joel. He is Clive Stewart Lockhart. Clive, great to see you. So I felt rather embarrassed when I realised that I had not heard of Betty Joel. Can you help me? Should I be embarrassed?
I don't think you should be embarrassed because, in a way, she probably chose to be that way herself. She, in 1939, parted company with her husband. Divorce eventually happens after the war. And she walks away from a business that had, at one time, employed 80 men and did nothing further again. And so it's quite easy to get forgotten over that period of time, I think.
What was it that she designed? Interiors, so we're talking about furniture and the like.
Furniture, yes. So when they first got married, when she and her husband David first got married in 1919, he had been a cabinet maker in the Navy. I mean, he'd learned how to make furniture, and they made the furniture for their own house. And she was deeply critical of it. And so he said, well, you know, you can design something better then. And so she did.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co. Obviously, not with Dewbs, it's me, Dawn Neeson, and I have got the lovely Ben Habib and Andy Preston with me right now, and we've got a really packed show for you, and it's not going to be non-stop Pope, I promise you that. We've got some cracking stories coming up now, including this one, which is a cracker. Pressure is mounting on the Prime Minister to break his silence on the Supreme Court's landmark gender ruling, with Labour MPs being accused of plotting to circumvent the judgment in leaked WhatsApp messages. Now, this might seem like an old story, but it's not. There's lots more legs to this one. Over the weekend, thousands of trans and non-binary people, trans right activists and, you know, the usual suspect, gathered for an emergency demonstration to march in protest against the Supreme Court's decision. Now, this all kicked off because it ended up, as you can see there, from, I think that's Kemi Badenoch's tweet. No, that's the Amnesty International tweet, yeah. It all kicked off where statues were vandalised, feminist campaigners pro-protesters were attacked, and lots of really, really nasty placard. That was the Amnesty International tweet you saw there, right? Trans rights are human rights. So let's have a look at some of the others, shall we?
What exactly do you want?
Trans women are women.
Do you want trans women in single-sex spaces? Is that what it is?
I think they should be wherever they want to be.
Exactly.
The new legislations saying that trans women aren't women are like diabolical, so I'm just here to basically say that we're not going to take that.
I support everyone's right to live, yeah. I don't know, I think it's just important to be open-minded, you know.
Yeah, OK, fine, whatever. Now, the annoying thing with this story, right, is all these protesters, they were defacing statues, particularly Millicent Fawcett, a well-known suffrage campaigner, and I don't know why people who think they're women would do that, deface a feminist statue, because if you think you're a woman, she should be a heroine to you. But I digress. Also very, very aggressive. And it's now been 5-6 days since this decision was made. And our Prime Minister, who, remember, is a human rights lawyer by training, hasn't said a word. And I've found some of the placards particularly offensive on this. Burn witches at the stake, kill J.K. Rowling, and lots of stuff I can't even possibly repeat. What do you think of this, Andy? Should our Prime Minister, it's an important legal ruling, it doesn't actually change anything, but it is an important legal ruling, should he actually say something?
Of course, Dawn, of course he should say something. He's hiding, but I didn't know that the placards were saying such repulsive things. I mean, goodness, we have to hope that there are several arrests super fast to show this fairness and integrity in the whole system. So let's hope that happens. But he's hiding because he doesn't know what to say. Keir Starmer says what wins him support, either from his parliamentary colleagues or the general public, and he's got a problem. Because the rump of his support feels one way about trans issues, the general public feels another. So expect him to continue to hide, expect him to say nothing, but let's drag him out of Downing Street and get him to say something.
But Ben, I mean, when we had the story over the weekend that many prominent members of his party and indeed his cabinet are not happy with his decision and having a meeting to try and find ways to stop it happening, basically, he has to come and say something. He has to lay the land out for what's going to happen and how it's going to come into effect. So far, women are going, well, what are you going to do about it? What's happening?
Yeah, well, I think Andy's absolutely right. The reason he's not coming out is because he's caught between a rock and a hard place. But this is symptomatic. His lack of preparedness to back the Supreme Court ruling and to be, sensible in the face of the overwhelming evidence of what a woman is down to political expediency. And I think this country absolutely is crying out for common sense in high office, and it shouldn't even have taken a Supreme Court ruling to tell us that a biological woman is a biological woman.
I've known it for 60 years.
I know. I knew it the minute I found women attractive, the girls attractive, I knew exactly what a woman was.
And they didn't have penises, did they?
No, they certainly didn't. And I would have been shocked if they had. And so let's just remind ourselves what transgender is, what fundamentally it is. It's a mental health issue. It's gender dysphoria. It's a recognised mental health issue. People who suffer it deserve compassion. They deserve support. They deserve not to be prejudiced against. But that doesn't, men who identify as women and women who identify as men, doesn't make them one or the other. They are what they were born. It's very sad, but as a society, as a country, and Western civilization, we touched on this a bit with the Pope in the last session, this is liberalism gone mad. Western civilization is killing itself on the back of liberalism. So that if you want to identify as a woman or a cat or a dog or whatever it is you wish to do, you should have the right to do it. And we've allowed common sense, as I say, to be hijacked by ideology. And it's a very sad reflection on the state of the country that it takes a Supreme Court ruling, complete waste of taxpayers' money apart from anything else, to tell us what we should all patently know.
I mean, the other line, actually, I'm going to bring to you in on the other line on this one, Andy. The Metropolitan Police put out an appeal today for any witnesses who had seen the statues being defaced, OK? Fine, lovely. But they didn't appeal for witnesses to people quite clearly holding these signs up, inciting violence against women. Now, we saw in the Southport riot, there was one lady there who was charged with inciting racial violence. She's been banged up for 3 years nearly. Why are we not? Why are the police not appealing for these people inciting violence against women?
Everyone who incites violence should face the law, regardless of where it happens, who it is, and the police should always act fairly, of course. I think what's really interesting here, actually, is that the Supreme Court's ruling wasn't actually about whether trans is OK, whether it's fine, whether it's not fine. It was actually about a legal definition of a woman.
It didn't actually change anything, did it?
It didn't change it. All of the issues that everybody gets very tense about, like safe spaces or competing in sports events, they weren't a matter of the law. That was our society deciding to act a certain way. It was about bosses and organisations being timid, being bullied and being cowardly. So I don't know if this law is really going to change much. It seems to have empowered some people. It might create a greater kickback and more bullying, I don't know. What's really clear, though, is that anybody brandishing placards, talking about death, should be arrested on the spot, and we need the police to act swiftly, drag them out of the crowd and get them down the station, not look into it for 3 months.
But this is where...
two-tier policing again?
This is two-tier policing, and to be fair to the police, and indeed every institution in this country, every education establishment, public services, armed forces, and everything, every single entity in this country is required through regulation and through legislation to practice diversity, equity and inclusion, which is progressive discrimination in favour of ethnic minorities, minority religious beliefs and also transgender ideology. So the police have been drilled into two-tier policing. We even had, I'm digressing, but it's absolutely on point, the Sentencing Council the other day saying that we should take into account the ethnicity and backgrounds of people when it comes to sentencing them. We have a two-tier criminal justice system. So when you see white, middle-class, heterosexual men complaining about illegal migrants, they're classified as far right. We have the Prime Minister directing the full force of the police and criminal justice system against them, directing the criminal justice system to arrest, detain and incarcerate these people. But when it comes to the opposite side, the protected status of these minorities, whatever their minority status is, they're let off the hook.
It just doesn't seem fair to women. All this didn't take any away trans rights, by the way. The trans people, the trans community, as we have to call them. I don't know what a community is either, but there we are. They still have the rights. It didn't take anything away. It just confirmed that women are biological women and they do have a right to safe spaces. That's all it said, which was already there in any case.
Absolutely. Can I actually just step in and defend the police? Not because of the policies, but because the coppers do a really difficult job.
The frontline coppers do.
They work so hard. And even the people at the top work really hard. But it's society that has done this to us. It isn't the police. It's not a police state. Society has decided to move a certain way, and timidly, too many of us have kept quiet, and the police are acting on wishes.
Why do we keep quiet, Andy? Why do we keep quiet? Why is our Prime Minister, who still believes that 99.9% of people like me have penises...
There was a culture where you would be bullied, where you would be harangued, you would be called a racist or a something-a-phobe or something nasty.
A transphobe.
And it was horrible. It was horrible. And it was horrible. And it remains horrible. So people are scared to stand up and speak out.
Well, we're standing up here and, well, what do you think? GBNews.com/your say. Let me know. I can hazard a guess what many of you are thinking. OK, there's plenty more to come on today's show. And by the way, I just want to say that there were plenty of people protesting very peacefully, and it is our right to protest, but there are a few people that are spoiling it for the people that genuinely feel their rights have been taken away from them, which they haven't. But, anyway, shortly we will be bringing you prayers from St Peter's Square in memory of Pope Francis. But we've also got a bit of Trump coming up for you. Should he be blocked from speaking in Parliament? This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson. We'll see you soon.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, here's your latest holiday sun forecast brought to you by the Met Office. We'll see plenty of sunshine across the Mediterranean over the next few days, but also plenty of showers, some of those on the heavy side. Certainly on Tuesday, a few showers across the Canaries and Madeira, some more persistent spells of rain across parts of Spain, and then we head into a mixture of sunshine and scattered locally heavy, even thundery showers across central and eastern parts of the Med. As for the rest of the week, well, western spots will tend to brighten up, certainly some warm sunshine developing here, but plenty of showers continue further east.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. We are seeing congestion on the A4232 northbound between the A48 interchange and M4 junction 33. In Wakefield, the A1M southbound between junction 41 and junction 40 is experiencing 30-minute delays. Drivers near Milton Keynes on the M1 southbound between junction 15 and junction 13 can expect delays of 20 minutes, with improvements anticipated later tonight. Congestion persists on the M4 eastbound between junction 22 and junction 21 in South Gloucestershire, causing delays of 30 minutes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co. with me, Dawn Neeson. As the sharp ones amongst you have already spotted, we do have slightly different accents. I've still got the wonderful Ben Abib and Andy Preston with me and Emma Trimble, because we are actually covering the Pope's prayers from Rome. The Vatican's leading a rosary prayer service in St Peter's Square in memory of Pope Francis, who we lost this morning. Cardinal Mauro Gambetti will preside over the service, which is expected to draw large crowds as people gather to mourn and remember the late Pontiff. There's a live pictures you can see on your screen there, and we are expecting something more exciting than that possibly to happen quite soon. But Emma, you have a faith. You are an Anglo-Catholic. See, I remember that.
It's complicated.
I'm learning on this one. What's going to happen tonight? What is a rosary prayer thing?
So my understanding is, I mean, it's going to be a rosary service, so presumably people will be praying the rosary in St Peter's Square. I have a rosary here with me. I've got two, actually. I know I'm armed and dangerous. I bought one for you in case you wanted one. So this was given to me by lovely producer Maria from Lords, that she got when she was a child, and she's given it to me here. And this one was from the lovely Stephen Pound, who many viewers will know.
Yes.
So the rosary, the history behind the rosary, the tradition is that it was given to Saint Dominic by an apparition of Mary. It's sort of known as a weapon of faith, and it's a combination of prayers that will probably be familiar to many viewers. So the Our Father, the Pater Noster, which to English people is the Lord's Prayer, and the Hail Mary, which is drawn from the Gospel of Luke. And it's something that Catholics, Anglo-Catholics pray all around the world, millions of people. And so there will be people today watching this at home and probably praying the rosary along with them.
At home, and that is what you would expect people to do. These are live pictures coming in from St Peter's in Rome there as people gather to do the rosary service. We believe there are thousands there. Obviously a very solemn ceremony, and we will be bringing you as much of that as we can. Andy, coming back to you, because we didn't have time to talk to you properly because I didn't want to squish you in 30 seconds because it's not like. So what did you want to say about today and losing the Pope and where the Church goes forward?
I want to say that it means different things to different generations. So I'm old enough to remember the Pope, different popes, and people older than me. The Pope had a status above humans in their heads. The Pope was actually halfway between human and God. The Pope was literally infallible, and anything the Pope decreed was beyond reproach or question. Now, That's wrong. No one really believes that anymore. And I think what Francis has done in a gentle way, he hasn't been particularly woke or aggressively liberal. What he has done, he's nudged the church along the way it was already heading. And he has reminded the public, and especially Catholics, that he is a man. And his famous quote, I think, when asked about various sins and various issues was, who am I to judge?
Yeah,
he's not saying they're not wrong. He's not saying that we should all behave, we shouldn't behave that way. What he's saying is, my job isn't to judge. We need a pope that inspires. We don't want a pope that's distant in a beautiful palace and riding around in a Rolls Royce. We want a pope who's like Jesus, who's in the street, fighting for rights, encouraging people to live good lives, and making sure that the charlatans, the elites, if you like. This is what Jesus hated, the elites. He smashed up things.
Well, I mean,
he got angry. He was a revolutionary.
Well,
and we need a little bit of that.
Pope Francis had a 20-year-old Renault he drove around in rather than the Pope-mobile. But Ben, do you think it's dangerous being more progressive and liberal when other religions around the world are becoming more, what's the word?
Muscular.
Yes.
Well, this is a particular point that we face in the United Kingdom, and again, as I mentioned in the earlier section, Western civilization more generally. We have, in the pursuit of the liberal global order, as I call it, we have welcomed mass immigration into the West from cultures and backgrounds which are, in many respects, alien to ours, and many of whom are antipathetic or even hold our culture and our traditions and values in contempt. And they are very muscular in their sets of beliefs. And our church, particularly the Church of England, has vacated the space completely and vacated it to the point, actually, where it's almost encouraging and celebrating these forces that have come in, these different cultures that have come in to the United Kingdom. And we are at a pivotal point as a civilization in the West. I think unless we get a grip of our own sets of beliefs, values, culture and history, and we start to become slightly more muscular, I'm afraid to say, that's what's required, slightly more muscular in our own approach, I think we will find that we will be set aside.
Andy, what do you feel about that?
I think there's some truth in what Ben is saying. I actually think that is happening. Christianity is growing, whether you measure it in terms of baptism, church attendance, how people feel in questions. Christianity is absolutely growing. And the more we remove it from everyday life and people live in beautiful palaces and drive Rolls Royces, the less people will come to Christianity. By the way, I think the Pope is absolutely a supporter of anybody fleeing trouble. But he didn't believe in open borders, and I think there's some confusion there. The Pope never condoned open borders. What he did believe in was supporting people in strife.
Yet he did say that migrants should be treated as Jesus, and when we should love them and cherish them.
Yes,
I mean, he went out to Lampedusa, the Italian island, didn't he?
And we should be kind to people who are here, but that doesn't mean we have open borders. They're not the same thing.
Right, OK.
So I was just going to say, I think you slightly misrepresented the doctrine of papal infallibility. It's probably way too theological to get into now, but it's a lot more nuanced than that. It's a lot more nuanced than that, and I don't. And the Pope Francis never contradicted that. So the idea of the doctrine isn't in contradiction with this particular Pope being somebody who goes out in the street, who embraces people. I also don't think that is in any way incompatible with a more conservative and traditional approach. And I think most conservative and traditional candidates for the papacy probably would agree with that. And one of the aspects, I think, of the growing interest in the Catholic faith, but in Christianity more generally, it's those traditions of Christianity that are more traditional, more conservative, that are attracting young people. And particularly, I mentioned earlier the fact that this Pope banned the traditional Latin Mass. That is something that is more popular. That sort of traditional way of worshipping is more popular amongst young people, and that isn't in any way in conflict with the idea of somebody being humble and being the sort of leader that serves. And I think, we mentioned the Maundy service tradition of washing the feet, well, in this case, it washed the feet of prisoners, but vicars, priests around the country washed the feet of their parishioners. And that's because Christ commanded that leaders should serve. And I think that's a very, not only very important, but actually a very conservative and traditional way of viewing things. So I think it's important that we don't sort of muddle up some aspects of his legacy that maybe shouldn't be associated necessarily with the left.
Would you agree with Ben, Emma, when he says that maybe the church in this country needs to be more muscular, whether it's the Anglo-Catholic Church or the Church of England?
Couldn't be less muscular.
It couldn't. Atrophied.
Yes, limp. Do you think, as a young woman in this country, Emma, that the church of this country needs to be stronger about where it stands?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church is a slightly different case, but the Anglican Church is floppy as anything. So I think...
where that was going.
I think it's really important, actually. It's not so much about being muscular. I mean, it's about being confident in preaching the gospel, in being clear that you know, what the church is preaching is true. And not being shy and cringing about it. And I think it's the shy and cringing way that past leaders have been, including the Archbishop of Canterbury, that I think has turned a lot of people off, because people see that the church doesn't take itself seriously, doesn't take its faith seriously, so why would you be attracted to that? And I think that's the reason why younger people find themselves attracted to those parts of the church that do take themselves more seriously. And I think it's very important to not imagine that a church taking itself seriously and embracing its traditions means hubris, means not being humble, means not going out and embracing the world.
As a Catholic, I can categorically reassure viewers that you were brought up to believe that the Pope was somewhere between God and man. And secondly, I would stress, so people understand, the Catholic Church is the most conservative organisation in the whole world, and it moves very slowly. This Pope is not a firebrand. He's tinkered with one or two things that others have done before.
OK. But we are moving on, by the way. What you can see on your screen is live footage from St Peter's in Rome, where they hold a rosary service, Emma?
Rosary.
Rosary service. It's been a long day. Rosary service.
Thinking about dinner, are you, Dawn?
Yeah, well, it is lamb. It's Easter, isn't it? You're meant to have lamb, rosemary. In any case, I'll shut up now, because we are going to talk about Donald Trump and why some MPs are campaigning to block him from Parliament. Is it because he might actually tell the truth? All that and much more. We'll see you soon.
Good evening and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. There's been plenty of rain around for many of us on Easter Monday, but it is going to be turning drier as we head through this evening and overnight. Plenty of clear spells in places. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather. We see that weather front from today continuing to push its way north and eastwards, and the legacy of that cloud, outbreaks of rain continuing across parts of Scotland through the rest of this evening. For the majority of the rest of us, though, any showers that we've seen gradually starting to die out this evening, so turning dry with plenty of clear spells on offer as we head into the early hours of Tuesday morning. Where we do see those clear spells could be turning quite chilly, perhaps a touch of frost in places, and also seeing some mist and fog forming under those clear skies, but generally staying just that little bit milder across the very far northeast, where we do see that cloud and the continuation of some outbreaks of rain persisting through Tuesday morning. Across mainland Scotland, generally a drier picture, a bit of a brighter start to the day. Some mist and fog across parts of Northern Ireland will clear quickly through the morning, as well across parts of Northern England too. But across parts of Wales, the southern half of England, a dry and bright day. Plenty of sunshine and blue skies on offer to start the morning. As we then head through Tuesday afternoon, while we do see any sunshine across the southern half of the country, there will be one or two showers bubbling up, though these likely to be much lighter and a bit more scattered than we saw on Monday. The legacy of that cloud and rain does continue across the very far northeast of Scotland, and then it's all eyes out to the west as we see this next weather front arriving. Feeling pleasant in that sunshine with highs of 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees, but feeling a bit fresher across Northern Ireland. That weather front then slips its way south and eastwards into the start of Wednesday, so quite a damp start for much of England and Wales, but the northern half of the country seeing a brighter start to the morning, although still some cloud across the very far northeast, and some showers bubbling up here too. That sets us up through much of next week. Some showers, longer spells of rain, but some drier interludes too, and temperatures around about average or perhaps a little above.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, there you are. Welcome back. I'm Lisa in for Michelle, and we are now going to talk Trump. Yes, because it's a fascinating subject, especially when you hear that Labour MPs are trying to get Trump banned from speaking to Parliament when he comes over here in September, we believe, isn't it? Because he's a liar. Now, forgive me, but if we banned everyone who has been proven to be a liar from speaking in Parliament, it'd be a very quiet place indeed. I've still got Ben Habib and Andy Preston with me. Coming to you first on this one. Right, OK, we know Trump's coming over here. There is a campaign so that he can't address Parliament because he is, their words, not mine, a liar and has not been acting in good faith towards Britain over the tariffs.
So, a couple of things to say. Trump won an overwhelming majority in his presidency vote. He won both houses and he won the popular vote. He is the democratically elected leader of the most powerful, biggest democracy on the planet. And the Labour Party, frankly, Labour MPs need to get a grip of their own prejudices. And this is rooted in prejudice because they have a vision of the liberal global order about which I was talking before.
You do like a bit of liberal global order.
Well, I mean, this is the big battle. It's the big battle between Trump's ideology and the Labour Party. The schism there is Trump believes in governing the United States of America for the interests of the American people and the United States as a country. Whereas the Labour Party is what I call Europhilic. It is got some sort of infection that attracts them to Brussels over and beyond the United Kingdom. Starmer is a Europhile. He wants to take the UK back into the EU. He doesn't believe in a proud, independent, sovereign, prosperous United Kingdom. He believes in a proud European Union. He believes in the global order. He doesn't want democracy to work at its grassroots level in the way that Trump does. And so this is the Labour Party in denial about democracy. That's what this is when they say they won't have Trump in Parliament. That's precisely what it is.
No,
but that's what it is.
Andy, what would you like to say about that?
I'm not sure. I do agree with a lot of what Ben says. However, what I have to stress, Dawn, is that speaking to Parliament as a foreign leader is a privilege that isn't dished out easily. Biden didn't do it. I think the last American to do it was Obama.
Obama, 2011.
Possibly Clinton. Nelson Mandela has had the honour, and it is an honour. Now, we have to cherish our allies, our friends, and maintain good relationships. If we want to put Britain first, we have to look after our economy. And that means sticking with our allies too, because we need them and they need us. Is America still the ally that it was? I think, personally, as soon as Biden was elected, the relationship between the UK and the USA started to go downhill, and I don't know if they are our friend anymore, so I'm not sure.
Are they more of an ally than the EU, though?
I think that we have to work out who our allies are, and putting tariffs, for example, on cars that clearly are designed to damage British jobs. That is not the act of an ally.
It's not designed to damage British jobs. This is designed to protect American jobs. I think the motive is different. And what Trump is doing is yanking at this global order where free trade was settled on Western civilization, Western countries, as if it is an ideology to which we should all aspire. Free trade should only exist to the extent that it benefits the particular country in question. And free trade has gone too far. We have deindustrialized the United Kingdom, for example, on the back of this free trade ideology, mixed, of course, with this completely daft drive towards net zero, which has been so damaging to industry. And what Trump is saying is, look, you guys have all taken the US for a ride. You've been effectively, through the back door, been taxing our goods. We've got VAT on all goods at 20%. And I want to levy a charge on your countries that are either through the back door or explicitly supporting your industries, preventing American companies from being able to export to you on the same basis. So the US was running massive deficits with the EU, with China, with everyone else. I have huge sympathy for Trump's approach to reordering the way free trade takes place. Perhaps I would have done it in a more measured way, but he's yanking back at something that needs yanking.
Yeah, I mean, look, free trade is brilliant, and free trade does make everybody wealthier, but it also, as Ben is spot on, it needs to be kept in check. Otherwise, the poorest people tend to lose out. Categorically, though, what Trump is doing, he may be putting America first. That is debatable. He may be. But it will damage British jobs.
Why do you say it's debatable, Andy?
Well, if you look at the reports, the research, the analysis of leading commentators, investment banks, investors, from people at the lower end to the absolute highest end, they are all incredibly and almost universally critical of everything Trump is doing with tariffs.
But we have to poorest
people poorer.
We have to re-engineer our own economy. We've got to start thinking, you know, everyone talks about levelling up. Levelling up doesn't come by chucking money at the north and other deprived areas in the United Kingdom. It comes from finding a purpose for people, and that comes from working, and that typically means making something. You know, we don't make anything anymore. If you don't make anything, you've got nothing to sell.
I 100% agree.
So we've got to start doing that.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, thank you.
But the Americans did point out, didn't they, that, well, you don't make anything anymore, so what are we going to trade with you?
Absolutely, and they've got a point.
Yeah.
And we have made ourselves geopolitically vulnerable as a result of our obsession with free trade. No, it needs a yank back. The Chinese have become a powerful military force on the back of our largesse, effectively, buying Chinese tat for 35 years and not thinking about the geopolitical consequences.
There's some truth in that, but if I can go back to Trump's visit, I think that he backs, effectively and vocally, a murderous dictator. Can we really have that person in the House of Commons?
Well, you say that as we have our very own Rachel Reeves about to go over to China to talk to Chinese, and they don't exactly have a good human rights record either.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Don. I think we need to get on with China. We want to work with them. The same for the USA. If Donald Trump backs Vladimir Putin and tells everyone that Zelensky started the war and is not democratically elected, he is unhinged, he's a danger to world peace, and we shouldn't be endorsing him.
Actually, Andy, good afternoon or good evening. Andy says Trump is democratically elected by America. He's a patriot and loves his country. Starmer will simply sell anything and everyone for votes, which goes back to the conversation about the Supreme Court judgment on women. It's certainly not a patriot. It's hard to see what he loves apart from himself. Lots of you are going along those lines. Well, do you think, Ben, that the Labour Party and Keir Starmer are actually quite frightened of Trump?
I think they...
I mean, they had that nice touchy-feely meeting in the White House, but...
I think they haven't fully appreciated how damaging it's going to be to the United Kingdom if they don't start taking a lead from Trump. The only way to deal with a Trumpian economic model is actually to do what Trump is doing. Trump is ditching DEI, all the things we've been discussing. He's ditching net zero. He is going to drill, baby, drill. He's going to have cheap energy. He's going to lower taxation. He's going to reduce regulations, and he's going to impose tariffs on us. The only way to deal with that is for us to deregulate, ditch net zero, ditch DEI, and start making stuff in the UK. What we must not do, which is what Starmer is doing, is sidle off to the EU, which is a highly regulated, highly taxed, socialist economic model, which is incapable of standing up to a resurgent American economy. We need to be looking west, not looking across the channel to Europe.
And do you think they've got a bit of brass neck, to be honest with you, saying, well, he can't talk to us because he's a liar?
Absolutely, because, of course, the place is full of liars and probably always will be. One thing I'll quickly add is that I think Labour are very scared.
You've been involved in this.
They are very, very, very scared of Trump, and I think it's because they know that he appeals, he is supported and sometimes almost adored by large elements of their traditional support, and they cannot match his charisma and appeal, and they don't know what to do.
It's because the Labour Party doesn't stand for the working class anymore.
Not anymore.
And Trump actually does.
They mentioned they stand for working people several times.
They don't. They don't stand for working people. They don't.
But they don't stand for pensioners or farmers or anyone else like that, do they? In any case, thank you very much for your company, and thank you very much to Ben Habib and Andy Preston. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed your first time. Sorry I'm not Michelle, and thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry I didn't have so much time to read your message out today, but obviously we did have to cover the events in Rome. Well, I hope hope you enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday, and it's been a good one for you. We will see you again tomorrow morning for breakfast, but up next is GB News Tonight. So have a wonderful evening. Hope you're enjoying yourself, and yeah, don't go too far because there's lots more coming this evening. See you soon. Thanks.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. There's been plenty of rain around for many of us on Easter Monday, but it is going to be turning drier as we head through this evening and overnight. Plenty of clear spells in places. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather. We see that weather front from today continuing to push its way north and eastwards, and the legacy of that cloud, outbreaks of rain continuing across parts of Scotland through the rest of this evening. For the majority of the rest of us, though, any showers that we've seen gradually starting to die out this evening, so turning drier with plenty of clear spells on offer as we head into the early hours of Tuesday morning. What we do see those clear spells could be turning quite chilly, perhaps a touch of frost in places, and also seeing some mist and fog forming under those clear skies, but generally staying just that little bit milder across the very far northeast, where we do see that cloud and the continuation of some outbreaks of rain persisting through Tuesday morning. Across mainland Scotland, generally a drier picture, a bit of a brighter start to the day. Some mist and fog across parts of Northern Ireland will clear quickly through the morning, as well across parts of Northern England too. But across parts of Wales, the southern half of England, a dry and bright day. Plenty of sunshine and blue skies on offer to start the morning. As we then head through Tuesday afternoon, while we do see any sunshine across the southern half of the country, there will be one or two showers bubbling up, though these likely to be much lighter and a bit more scattered than we saw on Monday. The legacy of that cloud and rain does continue across the very far northeast of Scotland, and then it's all eyes out to the west as we see this next weather front arriving. Feeling pleasant in that sunshine with highs of 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees, but feeling a bit fresher across Northern Ireland. That weather front then slips its way south and eastwards into the start of Wednesday. It's quite a damp start for much of England and Wales, but the northern half of the